I took the blame for my brother's crash. Then I found out my parents filed a fraudulent insurance claim using my name. My mom called me at 6:47 a.m. and said, "Don't panic, but we need you to tell the insurance company you were driving." I want you to sit with that sentence for a second, because I had to sit with it for way longer than a second. I was standing in my kitchen in my socks, coffee not even poured yet, and my own mother was asking me to lie to a claims adjuster about a car I hadn't even test-driven yet. The car in question was a 2024 Civic Sport I had bought 2 weeks earlier. My first brand new car ever. I'm 27, I'd been saving for 3 years. I financed it myself, insured it myself, and I had driven it a grand total of 9 times before my brother Dylan, 24, unemployed since March. In between things, as my parents like to call it, took the spare key off the hook in my parents' kitchen, where I was staying for 1 week while my apartment got new flooring, and drove it into a guardrail on Route 9 at 2 a.m. He walked away with a sprained wrist. My car did not walk away with anything. It was totaled, frame damage, airbags deployed, the whole thing. And the first words out of my parents' mouths were not, "I'm so sorry." They were, "We need to figure out how to handle this so Dylan doesn't get another DUI on his record." Because yes, he was drunk. Point to something. There's a whole backstory here, and I need you to understand it, because none of what happens later makes sense without it. I'm the older one. I've been the responsible one since I was about 11, which is also around the time Dylan started being the one who got away with things. Broke a window playing baseball in the house at 13, grounded for 2 days. I broke a lamp dusting it at 15, grounded for 2 weeks, and were disappointed in you. By the time we were adults, the pattern had a name in my head. Even if nobody in my family would say it out loud, Dylan gets protected. I get managed. Dylan's had 3 incidents with cars that I know of. A fender bender at 19 that my dad quietly paid off in cash so it never touched insurance. A DUI at 21 that got pled down to reckless driving because my parents hired a lawyer that cost more than my first year of rent. And now this, a third one, except this time it wasn't my parents' car or Dylan's car. It was mine. I said no. Obviously, I said no. I told my mom, calmly, standing in my kitchen with my coffee going cold, that I was not going to lie to an insurance company, that Dylan needed to take responsibility for once in his life, and that I expected them to pay me back for a car I had not even finished making payments on. My mom got quiet, then she said the sentence that changed everything. "It's already done, sweetheart. We already told them it was you." I drove to my parents' house that morning still in my pajama pants, and what I walked into was not an apology. It was an ambush. My dad was on the phone with someone. I'd later learn it was our insurance agent, using my name, confirming my date of birth, confirming that I had been driving alone, no passengers. Single vehicle accident, no alcohol involved. He hung up and looked at me like I owed him something. "It's handled," he said. "You don't need to do anything else. Your policy's the one on file, it'll pay out. We'll reimburse you the difference once Dylan gets back on his feet." Reimburse me. Once Dylan gets back on his feet. A phrase that, in my family, has historically meant sometime between never and the heat death of the universe. I want to be clear about something for anyone listening who thinks I should have just gone along with it to keep the peace. This wasn't just a lie to protect my brother from embarrassment. This was insurance fraud. My name, my policy, my signature on a claim describing an accident that did not happen the way it was being reported. If it ever got investigated, I would be the one who filed a false claim. Not my dad, not Dylan, me. My mom kept saying things like, "You're not even hurt, so what does it matter? And your brother has enough going on right now," and my personal favorite, "We're a family. We handle things privately." Dylan didn't say much of anything. He sat on the couch with an ice pack on his wrist, scrolling his phone, occasionally muttering. I said I was sorry, like that was a receipt he could hand me. I left without agreeing to anything, but I also, and I regret this, didn't explicitly tell them to stop. I was in shock. I drove home and just sat in my car in the parking lot for 40 minutes. That night, my dad texted me the claim number for my records. That's when I understood they were going to do this, whether I signed off on it or not. My identity was already in the file. Here's where it gets worse, and this is the part that took me 2 weeks to fully piece together. I called my Aunt Rachel, my dad's sister, the one person in this family who has never sugar-coated anything for me, mostly just to vent. And Aunt Rachel got very quiet and said, "This isn't the first time your dad has run a claim through someone else's policy. The fender bender when Dylan was 19. Not paid in cash like I'd always been told. Run through my grandmother's homeowner's umbrella policy, under her name, while she had early-stage dementia and had no idea what she was signing. My grandmother passed 2 years ago. Nobody ever told me that. Aunt Rachel said my dad has a whole system. Whenever Dylan does something expensive, my dad finds whichever policy is cheapest to claim on, or whichever family member is least likely to push back, and routes it through them. She said she'd stayed quiet about it for years because it's not my family to blow up, but watching it happen to me, someone she actually considers a daughter, was different. That's the moment the story stopped being about a car. It became about a decade of my family quietly laundering my brother's consequences through other people's names, other people's credit, other people's trust. I started asking around carefully. My cousin mentioned my dad had also asked HIM 2 years ago if he'd let Dylan borrow his car insurance info for a quick claim after Dylan sideswiped a parked car outside a bar. My cousin refused. I never knew that happened either. Nobody talks in this family. Everybody just quietly protects the pattern. And that's when the plan started forming in my head. If they were going to use my name on a fraudulent document, I was going to make absolutely sure there was a record of exactly what happened. A record that existed outside of my parents' control. I went back to my parents' house 4 days later, and this time I wasn't in pajama pants. I brought my phone and I hit record before I even got out of the car, and I put it in my shirt pocket, camera side out, recording audio and shaky video the whole time. I'm not proud of secretly recording my own parents. I'm also not sorry. I sat down at their kitchen table and said calmly, "I need you to walk me through exactly what you told the insurance company. Because I want to make sure my story matches yours if they ever call me." That one sentence, framed as cooperation, not confrontation, got my dad talking more openly than he had in days. He explained in detail on record that the claim listed me as the driver, that he'd told the adjuster I was alone, sober, and that he needed the timeline straight in case there was a follow-up call. He said, and I quote almost exactly, "Just tell them what we agreed, that's all you have to do, this isn't your grandmother's situation, this one's clean. That's your grandmother's situation." On tape, him confirming out loud that there had been a prior situation just like this one. My mom chimed in with, "Dylan can't afford another mark on his record, you know how he gets." And Dylan, who was sitting right there, wrist still wrapped, said, "It's not that deep. Just say you were driving, who cares? Who cares? About a felony-adjacent fraud charge with my name attached to it, who cares?" I asked one more question, gently. "And if the insurance company finds security footage or a witness who says I wasn't driving, what happens to me?" My dad's answer, "That won't happen. Just trust me, trust me." From the man who just admitted, on a recording I now had saved in 3 separate places, that he'd done this before with my grandmother's policy while she had dementia. I stood up, thanked them for clearing that up, and left. I did not tell them about the recording, not yet. I spent the next 2 days doing 3 things. I called the insurance company's fraud tip line and reported the claim as fraudulent, explaining I was not the driver. I contacted a lawyer, a genuine, paid consultation, not a favor, who told me that what my father described on tape was enough for the insurance company to open an investigation, and possibly enough for a fraud referral, depending on state law. And I sat with the fact that I was about to detonate my own family. I want to be honest, I hesitated. Not because I doubted what I was doing was right, but because some small, tired part of me still wanted my parents to just apologize and pay me back like normal people. They never gave me that option. My dad texted me again asking if I'd confirmed the story with the adjuster yet, completely unaware I'd already reported the claim. The insurance company opened an investigation within a week. An adjuster called me directly, not my dad me because it was my name on the policy, and asked me to describe the night of the accident. I told the truth. I was not driving. My brother was. I have a recording of my father admitting the claim was fraudulent and referencing a prior similar incident. I sent them the recording. The fallout hit fast. The claim was denied and flagged. My dad got a call from a fraud investigator within days. Because of the prior grandmother incident Aunt Rachel told me about, which the investigator asked me follow-up questions about, and which I answered honestly, this stopped looking like an isolated bad decision and started looking like a pattern, which is a very different legal conversation. My parents found out I'd reported it when the investigator called my dad to inform him the claim was under formal review. He called me screaming. Actual screaming, how could you do this to your own brother? Like Dylan hadn't driven drunk into a guardrail in a car that took me 3 years to save for. My mom sent a long text about how I'd torn the family apart over a car, which is a genuinely wild thing to say to the person whose car was destroyed and whose name was used without full consent. Here's the part nobody in my family saw coming, including me, if I'm honest. Once the insurance fraud investigation opened, it wasn't just about my totaled Civic anymore. Because of the pattern the investigator uncovered, my grandmother's policy, my cousin being approached about a separate incident. And now mine. The investigator asked if any other policies had been used to cover damages connected to my brother in the past 5 years. Aunt Rachel, once she learned an official investigation existed, decided she was done protecting anyone. She gave a statement about the umbrella policy claim filed under my grandmother's name, while my grandmother had documented cognitive decline. That detail, using a legally incapacitated elderly person's insurance without proper authority, is what actually turned this from family filed one bad claim into a real problem for my father. Specifically, separate from Dylan entirely. My dad was the one who filled out and signed every one of these claims. Not Dylan, my dad. The twist wasn't some cinematic courtroom reveal. It was quieter and, honestly, sadder. My father had spent a decade building a system to shield my brother from consequences, and in trying to run it through me one more time. He handed a fraud investigator a paper trail, 3 claims, 3 names, 1 signer, that connected all of it back to himself. Dylan's DUI-adjacent crash didn't take my dad down. My dad's own decade of quiet fraud, exposed because he tried it on the one family member willing to record him, did. My car's claim, once corrected with the true driver information, actually got paid out properly, to me, as the policyholder, once the fraud flag was resolved with the truth on record. Dylan, now correctly listed as the driver, is dealing with his own insurance and legal consequences for the DUI, including a real one this time, no family lawyer smoothing it over. Because my dad, the one who always handled that, was now dealing with his own fraud investigation and, frankly, didn't have the credibility left to call in favors. My dad is currently facing potential fraud charges tied to at least 2 of the claims, pending the investigation's outcome. I'm not going to pretend I feel great about that. I feel something closer to grief, but I also feel, for the first time in my adult life, like the truth mattered more than keeping everyone comfortable. Dylan has not spoken to me since. My mom calls sometimes, usually to cry, sometimes to blame me. I've told her I love her, and I've told her I'm done being the emergency exit for other people's consequences. The insurance investigation on my dad's end is still ongoing, but he's hired the same lawyer who used to handle Dylan's problems, which I find almost funny in a very bleak way. Dylan completed a court-ordered evaluation and is, according to my mom, finally taking it seriously, though I've heard that sentence about my brother for a decade, so I'm not throwing a parade. My relationship with my parents is basically frozen. My mom texts me updates I didn't ask for. My dad hasn't reached out at all, which honestly might be the most honest thing he's done through this whole situation. The good news, if there is any, I got a new car. Nothing fancy, but it's mine, it's paid for cleanly, and nobody's name is on that policy except my own. Aunt Rachel and I talk every week now. She said something to me that I think about a lot, that the family finally cracking open wasn't me tearing anything apart. It was just the truth finally having somewhere to go. If you've read this far, thank you. I needed to get this out somewhere that wasn't my own head. Be careful who you let cuss in your life, literally and otherwise.